The inland coast guard.
We drove by a sick, with a, well, we drove by somebody filling out their boat with sick, I was like, who's that friggin' idiot? Look over, oh, it's Craig.
Well, I was in the auto parts getting something on my four-wheel and Craig's in there getting stuff for his boat.
Yeah.
When you take off, all this afternoon. No,
Well,
Yeah, I did get out Saturday, I ended up, went out Sunday, I was ready to go.
yeah.
And, we got caught in that little fire, it's like football,
Yeah,
lasted just long enough to soak us all.
terrible. It's just.
Naturally.
And it just keeps getting worse.
Absolutely. I went down to the Cape this week.
I don't
played
know.
some golf.
Am I listening? to-
Yeah.
Had a big PGA show down at
Bet you
Gillette
were.
Stadium.
Too.
Yeah.
So we went down there, walked through there. And spent way too much money.
Don't so
Of
much.
course.
Yeah,
That's just.
Why was it?
I'm of the belief any money you spend on golf is way too much.
If my wallet gets too heavy, it starts pulling my pants down. So
The only thing that-
so I just make sure I get rid of it.
The only thing that's free when you
Yeah.
golf is a scorecard, and that's the one thing I do not use.
Well, see,
Because when I keep score, it'll be last time I golfed, because I'll be so embarrassed.
this time I capitalized on my own mistakes. I bought back all the new golf balls that ever hit in the pond.
You done, right? You got my.
They had a whole booth like dedicated to just balls they pulled out of the ponds. They were all brand new. So I bought.
Oh.
That's how I buy.
I really feel, which,
it's.
you're funny.
You know, you really don't want me to.
You can actually say what I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's true too.
Doc, how are you, sir?
Good, so.
So
Fantabulous.
Eric gets the candy bar.
Yeah.
Real nice.
Oh, we have a.
It's almost within arm's length to tell you, I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I started talking about, oh, there's some
Stay on destination.
20 minutes up the road, I'll get to that, I was driving back from Yamashita, I did a cheese tasting at Rising Tide Co-op. And I was like, I can get to the state park, and then I'll stop. And my GPS took me on a way, there is no place anywhere to pull over, anywhere, because there's one of those roads that there's like a stripe along the edge of the road, and then there's nothing. And you can't really pull over on the street. Yeah, I'm like, I just gonna keep driving.
So we, heard back about season tickets for next year, did Ben tell you?
You did?
We're number 19 out of like hundreds.
Wonder where we are. We've been on the list for a while.
Well, I
We
was-
got on the list in February, how about you?
Should I call before that?
So you might be ahead of us, you should call.
Well, the problem is I see today they. Cause you can renew, but you can also add on.
Oh, you can?
Only
And-
two
For
tickets.
people that already have it.
Yeah, and they said after they had done that, there was only like 30 tickets supposedly. But I'm like, that's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
So people buying them and they'll price gouge us.
Who's this for?
You may hockey.
In the garden?
No, for next season's
Oh, for next week.
season.
They're already like almost all gone for next year.
Yeah, the garden sold out. Well,
You know, they said they were gonna release extra tickets on Monday. That never happened.
for the garden.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This will be watching at home, huh?
Yeah.
yeah, you can pay like resale value, it's like $150. Talking to you may not. But talking to a guy I worked with, he was on the 99 championship team and he got tickets on Saturday. And he's in the lower bowl for like $47.
Yeah, that's what they were. And I didn't pull the trigger on it.
Oh, timing.
Hurt myself. You kicked myself.
Yeah. Oh,
What? He opened the door? Well, doesn't start till Saturday. This is the coolest group of people you're gonna find. Why would you not wanna be here? Right there. Hear that? Did you hear what you just said? Right there. We are the most easy to get along with, most accommodating.
Yeah, this is the charter.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
okay, yeah.
I told somebody I'd.
All right.
Yeah. Try to see where it is.
All right, when we're ready, I'll call the order here, folks.
We're ready.
Ham and cheese. All right, I'll call the workshop to order. So this meeting, workshop rather, is to review the charter for possible changes. And this will be to vote as follows. We have a process to go through here. So what I'd like to offer is kind of guidelines that we'd like to go by. So what I would like to do this evening, we'll start with if you have the hard copy or if it's on your screen here on the charter starts on page 3, which is sheet 30, 605, the charter and admin code. It starts with the town of Pittsfield Charter, Article 1, powers of the town. So what I'm thinking about doing as we go, we'll go by section or page. If there are no discussions or desired changes or suggestions, we'll move on to the next page, the next section. If there's something that we want to talk about, then we can stop, take notes. Jake will do his best to keep up with the notes on possible changes. And I'd like to say if there's, one thing that's by the majority of the council, it's not agreeable, and there's one or two that want to push through. I'm thinking if we get into a loggerhead, we just have a vote by majority, and we can move on. So if we're all in agreement, good with that, Jason?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Read through it verbatim.
No.
You're not going over the titles.
No, I'm just gonna go over title, I'm gonna say, okay, on sheet 30,
This.
yeah,
Can we have
Yeah.
Catherine come down and read it for us?
no, we can't.
Really good at long paragraphs.
No, we cannot.
I don't think, he said he might be running late, so he's hoping to be here.
Mr. Mayor, can I explain maybe?
Sure.
the
Yeah, please,
process a
please
little
do,
bit?
yeah.
As you all know, the charter portion of this will need to be, any revision that the council proposes will have to be acted or approved by the voters at our next municipal election. So I think, I do feel that this is probably gonna take us more than one meeting to get through. But how I would kind of recommend us doing this is the council going through creating their wish list, so to speak, the changes that you all wish to make. We can create kind of a redlined version of the charter that I would then recommend us to, once you go through all of it and make the changes that you would like to make, we'll create that redline version and then send it over to the town attorney for their review. We do not want the changes that we make to be contrary to any state law that's already in existence in Title 38. So that would be kind of the purpose of our town attorney reviewing that and providing any feedback or concerns that they would have, and then the council would receive that version back from the attorney. And if the council was good with it, we would, the council would, I believe, act on either a resolution or an order ordering the town clerk to place this on a ballot for the voters' consideration. So that's kind of the process, just so we know where we're. What town attorney we want to use? Well, right now it would be, it depends, I guess, how quickly you folks move through this.
Okay.
Whichever town attorney we have at the time of you getting done with this.
So our current town attorney said they can't take care of it any longer, according to.
Well, they're gonna stay on as long as, as long as we need them until we
Okay.
can get somebody else.
So they're not really leaving us in the lurch.
No, not at all. Their goal was to hopefully have the transition to a new town attorney be August 1st.
Okay.
But they are willing to extend that if we find ourselves in a bind and having acted on under the town attorney.
Understood.
So Jacob, for clarification, is it the firm or that specific lawyer in that firm? It's the firm, okay. All right.
Reasons given.
Well, Natalie is moving to of council status. And I've asked for clarification on reasons why, and I've not received anything further.
Yeah.
But I have a question about standing. So we go through, we make revisions. Do we then have, by resolution, we have a public hearing along with that?
I think so, yes.
And then are there rules about publishing that? Is it just, it gets published right after that? Are there rules because of the charter? Because it involves going to a vote? Like, what are the parameters for that? Like, how do we, before that, like what's our timeline as far as having the review done, getting it submitted, having the attorney,
Yeah.
having them published, public hearing, and then in time to actually be listed on the ballot?
Well, from a town clerk's perspective, Nicole will need this 60 days before the election at the very latest. I haven't done math, to know when that was, but I think that would be sometime in September.
Yeah.
And you'll probably need, once you guys get the final, the draft back from the attorney, we would need to publish the public hearing notice, which I think is 2 weeks. So it would be nice, come June or July for you guys to really be very close to.
I think we set a shut off, beginning of August, that'll give us another month, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then it'll give her 60 days.
Yeah, I mean, 60 days is the.
Earlier is better, of course, right.
She'll probably disagree with me saying 60 days, but that's,
So at the very latest, we want to have the public hearing by the first meeting. Right?
yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's our drop dead right there.
But I think we can do that.
Okay,
You guys are starting early enough.
all right, any more clarification before we get started? All right, good. So on it is page 3.
I would just say, we didn't have a PDF, a Word version of the town charter. So when we converted it to Word, your page numbers might be different than what you
Okay.
have in your book.
Well, I'll go by the article then.
Yeah,
Well, do you have a PDF?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm all PDF.
Well, you sent
the Word
version.
I believe-
Sounds good.
Camera's off.
no, fix it.
All right, so let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and start with Article 1. I don't need to read through it. If everyone has that in front of them, what I like to do is if there's any one that has anything they want to discuss or mention on that, I'll bring it up. No response, I'll move on. So anything on Article 1? Very good. Article 2, Town Council.
Yes,
All right.
I have a question on the composition. Does it have to be
Can you, what section?
section
Okay,
201 A,
okay.
okay? Does it have to be 4 district councils and 3 at large? Or can it be 7 at large?
I think it should be set.
Well, there's another section in here that I noted that will come up to, that every 10 years, the districts need to be revised and reviewed by 5
Right,
registered voters appointed by the council.
which probably wasn't done in 23.
Well, that was put in 1983.
Yeah, it said every 10 years from
Yeah.
then, so.
So the last one would have been last year and it would have been, 2013 before that, and I don't recall either one being done,
Either of them being done.
or even 2003, yeah.
I'll think Howard's questions. You can ignore the other part. I mean, Howard's question's valid, I think. Can we have 7 at-large members
Well,
and ignore districts and as part of the thing, districts go away?
Well, here's my thought on that. My opinion is why that was put in as kind of like the electoral college, so that, population centers and concentrations are represented. You could have 7 councils from Sibley Pond Road. How's that gonna represent, you know, here in town, or people in North Main, or, you know, it's a regional thing, so that we have representation for the voters.
I think it broadens your pool of candidates for each position, so you're not. I guess the way I see it is you're not just pulling necessarily. The best in a certain street, you're pulling the best in the town. You're pulling the ones that want to be the most active. The ones that can represent everybody as a whole, because I think. I don't know, finding somebody willing in District 1. Has not exactly been easy, I don't believe. Tim was here for
24 years.
24 years, right? And I think it was. Myself and one other,
But it wasn't,
3 years ago.
Tim wasn't in there because there was need, because no one else would do it. Tim was in there because no one else would run against him.
But that's my point, right? So that's my point, not having a depth of pool in that district. But in District 2 and 4, there has been an extraordinary amount of interest. I mean, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 people sitting in this room that represent 2 and 4.
Well, perhaps if I may respond to that, perhaps the reason why they have every 10 years reviewing districts to account and allow for that.
Well, that's more of a population thing though, I think, because
Yeah.
it goes by
Yeah.
population and registered voters
Yeah.
versus.
You're
Like-
really.
I mean, yeah, but you still could redraw lines, still have the same population. I mean, because the only way it defines it, I know we're getting ahead of putting the cart before the horse on this one, but it defines it so that the lines are drawn, you know, along streets. So that they're clearly defined, but other than that, you know, so that the population is balanced, it doesn't say you have to maintain District 4, you have to maintain District 3, 2, and 1. I mean, there's the opportunity there to do that.
The lines are drawn along main streets in town, as I recall the map. And in doing so, you know, nothing is really gonna change, you know, I mean, you know, even if they meet every 10 years. Where are they gonna redraw the lines? Are they gonna eliminate, you know, Sibley Pond Road, you know, from District 4 to District 3, you know, I mean, you know. Is there gonna be gerrymandering of the districts? I mean, with a population of 4,000 in the town, and, you know. How many registered voters? 2,000 maybe?
Right.
I don't know that it matters that much.
That's,
As well as, you know, my thought behind it is also that if you volunteer for this, I think that. Because you are volunteering, you know, our pay is doubled over the years, but, you know, you're still volunteering. But, you know, you're getting people who want to do the best for the town. And you have to expect them to have the town's interest, you know, and there have been issues with the finances and everything else, you know. What happens at the airport, you know, which is in District 2, right? You know, affects everybody in town, you know. What happens in District 3 or 4 with respect to, you know, Chimbrow or Puritan, you know, being here or not, or what businesses go in there, or up towards Dunkin' Donuts and such. I think that, you know, the councilors who sit here should have the best interest of the town, you know, and not necessarily their district.
That's
You know, if there's issues with, you know, what to build, what not to build, how to put it, that's a question for planning board and for districting different zones, which is different than voting districts. So,
I also know, like, personally, some of my closest friends are in 2 and 4. That's just the way that it's been, right? That's people that I know that I've been close to, and they talk to me and I'm like, unfortunately. This really needs to kind of be funneled through. I can, but it really should be funneled through, and that kind of, it breaks down the idea of that small town. Like, we're all here to help everybody. Yeah, I just think I think that we,
But
That's-
you're not obligated to only deal
Understand.
with your district
Understood.
issues.
understood, and
You're,
I brought.
you're elected to represent that area. It doesn't mean you're limited on who you can and can't talk to, what actions you can and can't take.
Understood.
I mean, a person like Sibley Pond Road can talk to you just as quickly or as effectively as any of the other six.
So then why,
Right, so to the
then why,
point-
why do I have to,
Then you
why
don't need.
do I have to have somebody represent that area?
Yeah.
To me, if they can talk to anybody, then there should be no definition between those individuals. They should just be the 7 most willing that the town wants.
I think part of it is, I think we should maintain what we have, in part because you do have that flexibility of the at-large, it's a good mix. You're pulling people from different areas of town that have different interests. You also have the option of having the at-large, there's 2 at-large, 3 at-large, and that's what it is.
One extra
So
level.
it's almost, it's almost evenly balanced there, you know, it's weighted a little bit toward making sure that the town geographically is represented. Because there are pockets of different people that live in different areas and they have different viewpoints, right? And then there's also the flexibility of having those at-large positions. And so that's where, like, if there's people in District 1 that want to serve and they know they won't be able to run against, they don't want to run against the person that's in the District 1, there's the at-large seats. So there's always an option there for people to step forward and be able to serve the town outside of their district seat. And secondly, I don't think that the redistricting would change very much because our population hasn't changed as much.
Yeah.
I think that gives us the option if there's a large housing development that gets going down on one end of town, that it doesn't, you know, swing, it doesn't put like so many voters in that one section and that it's not distributed equally. And that's why there's different sizes. I mean, you look at District 4, it's like everything west of 95 and a little bit north on Heartland Ave, which I didn't even know about until like 3 years ago. That Heartland Ave was part of it, so I was always told it's just everything west of 95. And so that's like the geographic part of it. There just aren't as many people that live out there, you know, but the smaller ones, and probably District 2 is probably one of the most concentrated areas because it's right near the school, and historically, that's where most of the residents were, near the schools, near the railroad tracks, near the services historically. So there's a lot of houses in that area, which is probably why there's a lot of people living there and a lot of interest in those fields. I'm happy with the way it is.
I agree with you for that. Those very.
Can we do a straw poll?
Any other comment? Natalia, you wanna weigh in? Or
Well,
Maybe you
I
wanna
had thought
say?
about it and listening. I don't feel strongly one way or the other. I think I agree with Dr. Margolski. We're not talking about a huge population, so making sure there's representation of each district can be maybe unnecessary. Because just because I live on Chester Street doesn't mean I don't know what's going on Civic County, I would care about that too. But I could go either way.
All right, anything you wanna put in, Jason? We'll take a quick vote, hand vote.
I mean, I think, Howard and Craig kind of had good points, so I mean, I think it's been difficult in some districts to have candidates and people go. Unopposed, or there's an empty seat altogether, like District 2 was empty a few years ago, and you know, would that have been filled if it wasn't limited to District 2?
It was
Probably,
only empty, because somebody left early.
well, let's. Okay, well, in that case, yes, in that one scenario, but there's been times where, there's many times where people run unopposed, and if they had the whole town to pick from, maybe that would be different, and I don't think we're so big that we couldn't just have anyone represent anyone, which is more or less how I view it already,
Me too.
and how I approach everything. So, I mean, I think it's just maybe gonna make us stronger. To have
Yeah.
more candidates and people that are passionate and that wanna be part of it.
All right.
And obviously they can now, but
Let me make a quick comment, we'll vote here. So I guess the point I'd like to reiterate that Heather brought up is very important, is that that's why we have a 3 at large. If there's, a person, like, let's say, use Tim Nichols, for example, he's been a stalwart for 22+ years, no one wanted to run against him, but there's always the at-large, you can live right next to him. Same district, still have the at-large, and that's 3 out of the 7 positions. I think if we open the can of worms here, there's another section we gotta do, and this is gonna be a bit more than we anticipated, and I don't know what the pushback will be from the town, so. I like the way it is because I think it's like an electoral college, you're representing the population, and the fact that every 10 years there's supposed to be a redistricting or a review. And that does not mean we have to keep the same streets, we can, we can certainly redraw just as long as the districts have the same population. It does not say it has to be similar to the same districts, we can completely redraw as long as the population is representative. And of course, I'm sure there'd be an assumption that'd be like a geographic input to that. So, my opinion is that, I think it's working. I don't think there's been an issue with not having people taking up papers. And the option is that there always is the at-large. So I guess, let's go ahead, do a hand vote on this.
What about public opinion or public comment?
Anyone in the audience, have anything they want to bring up on this? And then we're for latecomers, and even latecomer.
Can I suggest a compromise or, an in between? Is there any, for hard and fast rule regarding there being 4 districts? What if we had 3 districts and
Yes.
4 at large?
Well, that's what it says.
Yeah.
Well, we're doing, I mean, we can change, that's what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
That's what
Was it?
that's what was suggested, but we haven't voted on whether we should follow through with it.
What I'm saying is that's the whole part of this meeting, right,
Yeah.
is to find what we're gonna change.
Yeah.
Not necessarily just this.
We could change the number of
Okay.
districts and the number of.
All right, so let's make a vote now. What I'd like to vote on is, all those in favor of keeping the way it is, we can vote on that. And then, if that doesn't pass, then we'll consider changes that, the council would like to make as the majority. So why don't we look for a show of hands, all those in favor of maintaining, the charter the way it's written for the council makeup?
I just make a quick suggestion that, I don't, can we like identify the areas tonight? And then when we have the full council, go through and have like the full discussions on whether or not to include items? Just because I think Eric should be.
I like
part of
that.
it.
I do too. I agree.
So.
So we just say. do we
So
make a
if,
change
so
in this thing?
if we have another meeting and there's another council that's not here, we'll have to do that again.
Well, more like just to identify like, okay, this had some discussion around it. And
Yeah.
then the next one would be like, which ones?
Put
do
a
we
pin in
want?
it and get
Yeah.
back to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I like-
I feel strongly
Okay.
that all.
Unless
All right.
it's unanimous or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably.
Okay, yeah, I have no issues with that. So we're talking, Article 2 as a whole, putting the pin in?
Yeah.
I'll highlight like.
Yeah, okay.
Are there other options in Article 2? Because it keeps going further.
Well, if we, look at the composition, that will probably have a snowball effect unless you want to go through each line of this, decide whether you want to put a pin in it. I think we're gonna start, getting into the minutia that we probably don't need to at this level.
Well, I was thinking like, if we went by section, like, is there anything in section 2? And that way we have, instead of saying, oh, let's go back to Article 2, then we go back to each section to know whether or not, you know what I mean? So look,
2.02.
I mean, Article 2 goes for another, I mean, that's all of the town council stuff. So
Right.
it doesn't narrow things.
Okay, so your suggestion is to, we want to talk about section 2.01, paragraph A.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
Just this
yeah,
section
all right.
has Everything to do with the town council
Yeah.
or,
Okay.
Article 2 is everything.
so are we in agreement that we'll put a pin in section 201, paragraph A composition, and we'll move on, starting with B and, continue down?
Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
yeah.
We're all in agreement, Craig?
Yes.
Heather? Doc?
Yep.
Good, okay. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's move on to Article B. Well, actually, let's, continue down. Any, questions on B? Any on C? I'm gonna move along here. Speak up. If there's anything you want to bring up. D. Section 2.02. Section 2.03.
So 202 is a compensation and expenses. Do we just leave that even though the compensation is zero now?
I would say we leave it in there, and if, the councils decide to pay themselves, God bless them for trying. Section 2.03.
We
2.0,
don't get a check at the end of this 3 years?
2.04. You, I want you to come in on Zoom, that way I can conveniently hit that little button. 2.05, anything in there? Paragraph A or B?
I had something on B, I don't know if this is where it would be or where it might be, and it could be administrative code. But in the past, we've had town employees kind of express the need or want to come and talk to us about issues going on. And basically, I mean, I don't, most of the people would say, no, you gotta go through town manager, we can't really talk to you about that, do anything like that. Obviously, like an HR position would kind of allow them to come and, you know, they could go to HR versus the town manager, who's the direct report, but there's nothing really giving them the ability to air an issue to somebody other than their supervisor. you know?
Actually, if you look at the last sentence, it says, neither the council nor its members shall give orders to any such officer or employee. They can come talk to the council, anyone in town can do that, but we cannot tell them what to do or what not to do.
Right, okay.
Anyone who works for the town manager.
Yeah, don't give them direction, hey, go
Right.
sweep the sidewalk.
That's what it's talking about. And that's why it's called interference with administration. It builds up a preamble. And it says, neither the council nor its members shall give orders to any such officer or employee, either publicly or privately.
Okay,
I mean, we can't
maybe-
meet with them
maybe
in
it's-
private, say, well, you have to do this now, but don't tell Jacob.
right, and well, and maybe it's not that section, but that's something that.
Yeah, I think there's
I don't
reference to it later on, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
okay.
that's something that, this is the section, because it says the council or its members shall deal with town officers and employees who are subject direction and supervision of the manager solely through the manager. So this is the section you're talking about, Jason. And
Right,
it does mean that you shouldn't be, obviously, you can have conversations with people and things like that, but when it comes to like operations, that's where it needs to go through the manager. Otherwise, you're gutting any authority that the manager has. And then you have like a lot of cooks in the kitchen.
yeah, I'm just saying like I mean, I guess it's all kind of resolved if you actually have an HR person that's not the town manager. Because if I have an issue with Jacob, I certainly don't want to go to Jacob to talk to him about my issue. I would want to go to my HR representative. And,
Well, I think the personnel, just read this. The personnel, changes that we made a couple years ago in the policies, there was a new policy that was implemented. And that, as your supervisor, that's the first person that you're supposed to go to, whether it's Jacob or whether it's the police chief or whether it's Johnny at the transfer station. The supervisor is the first person that you're supposed to deal with any issues with.
sure,
And then if it doesn't get resolved, then it goes up to the town manager. So there's already that built in, if you're having trouble with your manager, you still have to, like your department head, you still have to go to the department head first to try and resolve it. Then you go to the town manager. The town manager does a.
Well,
Right, which is not what this paragraph is about.
But Jason's saying that like, this would,
Yeah, I understand.
so town employees should not be coming directly to counselors about issues. They should be going through the chain of command within
but if,
the
But
architect.
if
There-
they're bullying me, who do I go to as a town employee?
There's a committee, so if you have to make the
That's
complaint
that's
first,
later in this.
right?
Okay.
So you have to like make the complaint first or have that initial contact with your department head. If it's the department head, you still have to have that initial contact with them. And then if you don't have resolution, then you go to the town manager. And if you don't get resolution there, there's a committee and I forget what it's called.
Yeah, that's all identified in the
That-
administration
it's all-
code,
Okay.
which we're gonna cover later.
well, that's why I asked. if
Yeah,
it was-
yeah, this is this says, doesn't say you can't have discussions, it does says you cannot direct.
Okay,
This
Yeah.
gentleman has that authority.
then I'm
That's
good.
all it says.
If you think it's covered somewhere else.
Yep, it is, it's in the admin code. All right, move on, section 206, paragraph A. Paragraph B. Paragraph C. Section 207. Section 208. Section 209. Section 210. Section 211. Anything in section 211? All right, section 212. Section 213. We have, actually, I have something in section 213 on, D. Section 213, paragraph D, it says. Publish defined as using this section, the term publish means to print in one or more newspapers of general circulation in the town. The ordinance, number one, the places, the note I have in here, perhaps define media other than print as acceptable. We need to check the state law, however.
That's a good point. That's cost us a lot over the years.
So I'm wondering if we can look into if the town website would qualify. Yeah, I wouldn't go as far as Facebook and probably note, check the website for interesting information or that type of thing.
We
Yeah,
can,
yeah, I just, look at the old man wants to keep things modern.
we can review that. I believe state law uses similar verbiage of newspapers of general circulation in the town. I think that this deals with, publishing public hearing notices, things like that.
Right.
We're still required to publish those in the newspaper.
Right.
Yeah, not everybody's said internet.
Yeah,
I guess that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, it was just a note I had in there. We can move along then.
Yeah.
Okay, so section 214. Section 215. Section 216. This is where I had a question on section 216. Paragraph B codification. The note I have in here, it says the last sentence, copies of the code shall be furnished to town officers. Placed in libraries, public offices for free public reference and made available for purchase by the public at a reasonable price fixed by the council. The question I have is, what is the current cost and should this be identified now? Or has it been necessary to set a price to date? Or whether we even need to, it was just a question I had on this. I don't think it requires a change.
if you had a price, it would be in your fee schedule.
Okay.
I don't
Okay.
know if there is one or not.
Okay,
What I would say is. Usually towns have like a photocopy. um, Price per
Yeah,
copy,
okay.
that's probably what we charge
all right.
in this case.
Okay, I'm good then. Just a note I had, no,
One, to include placed in libraries, public places, public offices as, and add the website. Because it should be available on the town website.
yeah, I mean, it's not necessary, I don't think. Public reference made available first by public. I don't think that's necessary because whatever is available as public record is available on the website. We don't need to call that out. What this is calling for said this is available
I
and
was just saying, this is the minimum requirement. You can go over and above the minimum by
Yeah.
putting it on the website.
Right.
This is just the minimum.
yeah. And actually, the only question I had was just for clarification. Actually, the only thing I had was just for clarification, if there was a cost. No, I had no desired changes on it. I don't think any is necessary. All right, so let's move on to paragraph C. We'll finish out section 216. Okay, so the next one, Article 3, Town Manager, section 3.01. So this is the note I had was, says refer to the current town manager contract, change as needed either by reference or insert proper nomenclature.
So it'd be the last sentence of section 301, right?
Well, that was just a note I wrote to myself
Right.
because, the statement in here doesn't reference the contract that we have currently and that I think we would like to pursue in the near and future.
Have the contract be the standard
Yeah,
employment.
Yeah.
Town manager.
Yeah, somehow, but I didn't know how to word that or reference that. We can certainly think about it, come up with the proper, verbiage on that. I don't know if we can get it tonight, but it's just a note that this is actually the biggest thing I want to address in here, and that's why I'd asked, Jacob for a copy of the contract that we have for reference if it did come up in conversation, but I think it needs to be somehow acknowledged in here, whether we completely get rid of that and say by contract. And if we do that, we're gonna have to get the right verbiage, and this is certainly gonna need, some, attorney input on, it to make sure it's correct. You know, for future councils, because we gotta look at this saying that. If we're here from here until, you know, the end of the world, someone's gonna have a reference, okay, I remember when we put that in, this is what it means. We need to make sure this is written so that. Future councils can read that and understand exactly what it means. You know, so I'm not sure how we address that.
just needs to be a contracted position.
So I'm thinking that's gonna take a little bit more thought. A bit more thought process and input on that. I would be willing to put a pin in that. We can address that with the first one that we had. At the next meeting. That way, if we get some input, from each of us, well, let's call it this, let's write this, and then we can. Conglomerate all that into something that sounds reasonable and it's, efficient and official. And then we can have the attorney, bless it or burn it, and then, we can adjust from there. Just a note, that we need to address it somehow, that there is a contract, process now that wasn't here before, so this is gonna be kind of a complete, tear down and build up, I think. So do you wanna,
For 3-1, yeah.
put a pin and move on?
1 and 2.
And 2.
Yeah, 3, 1 and 2.
And then the rest is,
You got the sentence here about residents also.
yeah, that last sentence should just be stricken.
Well, you need to
Right.
be
Well, that's
section-
right. That whole thing will be done, and of course, if we go to contract, that's moot now, because the contract. Follow that up.
Leave section 302 there, because there's always the chance that you would want to remove or suspend someone within their contract periods.
Right, but we have to put in reference to contract, though, there's no reference to a contract in there.
Well, I have a note here, and this could be a 10-year-old note, sometimes part in this book around, that section. Not sure, as that section, 2313 has been repealed, and there's a 30-A now instead, so there's some updating in the language for the legal.
Right, but if we have two different references to the same action or same statement, they need to match, and if that is indeed referring to a contract, this is not. We need to have it,
Which one are you talking?
you're talking about reference to a contract for termination, right?
I'm talking about,
We're on section 3.02.
right, that's what I'm talking about. So
Okay.
what I'm saying is that
That's
whether or not you have a contract, you would want to keep section 302. Because even though you have a contract with someone, there may come a time that you want to or need to remove them for some reason. And that you need parameters on how to do that and the authority to do that.
Right, understood. However, we need to acknowledge that there is a contract in play. This refers to no contract at all, because we may have a contract that if a future council wants to negotiate in that, it's well, let's say we have a town manager that wants to say, well, I want it in there stipulated that section 302 is null and void, and we go by contract. And if that is true, which is completely legal for a future council to do, then that section 302 is moot, and there's no reference to it. All I'm saying is just put in a reference to, you know, as any current contract that may exist. You know, make sure that's taken account, that's it. I mean, but if we put these two together and do a review later on, we can certainly have that discussion.
Is there language in the contract now that refers to removal processor, or is it?
Yes, there is.
There's any of these contracts we would have to.
Term,
terms and conditions.
Section 2 is term,
And
termination, the severance fee on section 3.
So it's the process, so the process in the contract should match the process here. Like,
That's right.
because the contract could be negotiated separately from, this is, the first one is just saying they'll have a 3-year contract. The terms of that contract would be negotiated depending on who the person is, because it has your compensation and vacation and all that stuff in it, which would be separate than the terms of actual removal or suspension. So I think we need to keep that in there, even though.
Right, but
has a
I,
contract.
let me,
O2 would simply just say, in accordance with the terms and conditions of contract, that would be.
Right.
That would kind of be the end of.
and my simple point is that we've agreed to review section 3.01 at a later date as we did previously because it warrants more discussion. Let's just include section 302 in that discussion because I think there's some reference that need to be done, has to be tied together, and let's agree to put 101 and 02 together for a review at a later date and move on. It's not that we're ignoring it or we're not gonna address it. I just think it needs a little bit more thought and a little bit more consideration to make sure we have a consistent read for this whole thing.
You're right, because the reason that that's outlined there is because there was never a contract in place before.
Right.
So we had to go by general guideline because there was nothing ever.
We have to acknowledge where it needs to be acknowledged. That's all I'm saying.
In the absence of one, you have to have the other.
Right. I'm not making judgment call. I just think it needs to be acknowledged. I'd like to say let's include section 301, 302 together for future consideration as we did on prior. All set, Jason? Doug, Heather?
Yep.
All right, let's move on. Section 303. Section 304. One thing, it's a minor detail, section 304, you notice. You get down to number 6, it's bold because it's been revised previously. It says his or her direction, he or she. If we look at sentence 2 and sentence 3, it's minor detail, but I'd like to have those changed to his or her.
Is there a
Because
way,
there's no consistency there.
as a general guidelines, is there a way to have it noted when the revisions were made to a specific section?
There is.
Down
Yes,
the
Yeah.
at the bottom.
The bottom of
It's
the
for the
page,
entire
no.
page, right?
There's
It
a,
It's
says-
just that, note. Can we do it directly on there? Because I don't think, okay,
yeah, the way it was.
yeah, I missed that,
It's
entirely.
kind of weird.
You feel bad?
No,
You should.
I need those on your face, can I borrow them?
One thing that, we may wanna do going through this whole document, because it's like an agent, is to update all of the language to they, there, instead of he, she. It would make things much clearer and less cumbersome going all the way through.
I was thinking the same thing, they there.
Doing pro town. No.
Yeah, we are.
I'm not a pronoun expert, so you.
Well, it's a neutral program, you don't have to worry about.
You don't ever have to use it again.
That's right.
Yep, that's a general comment to the.
Okay, I guess my point is, let's make sure that the tenses, the verbiage, past, present, or future all match
Yeah.
throughout the document. How's that?
Consistent.
Okay, let's move on then.
So who's editing this? Who's gonna make those changes? You, Jacob, or someone else?
Oh, thank you.
All right, Article 4, I have to stop and think about my Roman numerals here. Administrative Department, Section 4.01. Section 4.02. Section 4.03. Section 4.04.
Hold on there.
Yeah.
It's 4.02,
We're still in that complete.
yeah, 4.02, isn't that kind of where what Jason was talking about would go into, potentially? Personnel director,
Let's talk about how 4.02 was written. That's what we're talking about, this section.
4.02B,
4.02B, the town manager or an appointee shall be the personnel director.
Well, the town
Okay.
manager would appoint an HR person.
could appoint someone in their staff and be HR, so would that be potentially where we would outline that or bring that part in?
I think if you recall, if you'd read in the administrative code about personnel issues and grievances and the way that's done through the administration, there are options there, and I think that will be addressed there. That was one thing that I had looked on the administrative code because there was no option other than going through the town manager. It was very limited and it
Right.
really hamstrung some prior employees
Right.
to the negative.
So. Yeah. Is this where you would change it?
No, I think the process on that, the grievance process is spelled out 3 or 4 different steps, and it is in the administration code.
But the Personnel Appeals Board under C, 4.02C, is that board that makes decisions if there needs to be a resolution that somebody doesn't agree with.
Yes, I believe so. Yeah, but once again, that's in the administrative code, we're actually making definitions here.
Well,
That's what
why I
we're
would
doing in the
think
charter.
That's why I would think that personnel director would be their point of contact. That would then initiate the meeting of the personnel board. Right, because we're kind of tying all this in. I mean, that's kind of what you want. You want a very consistent charter, not segmented necessarily. So you want each kind of section to speak to the others.
Well, if you look at D, the town manager shall prepare and submit such rules to the council, which the council shall adopt by ordinance with or without amendment. These rules shall provide for practices and procedures necessary to the administration of the town personnel system. It's already accounted for. That authority is given to the town manager. Our input as the council, we can say yay or nay and make
Right.
suggestions.
But that is where we tripped over.
Yeah.
That is the exact line that caused us to trip last time.
Because we don't make the decision, the Personnel Appeals Board
Right, but,
regarding a personnel issue.
right, but it's-
Personnel Appeals Board makes a recommendation. to the town
And-
manager.
And the town manager can accept or ignore it.
Which we don't want.
we would want, that's right.
Are there?
We want a process in which they could then appeal that to the council or to,
Right, but that's addressed in the administration code through the process, and that will come up at a future meeting. What we're talking about is what we're seeing here in print under section 4.02.
So this is establishing the system. So the personal appeals board, this establishes the board, how it gets, how it is and who it is. Do we have rules about how they operate?
It's further spelled out in the town code.
Okay.
And it says that they report back to
The
the
town
town
manager,
manager, or it does, and
Yes.
then
yes, it does.
the town manager has the option of following the recommendation or not.
Right.
And then it stops there.
Correct.
Yes.
that's where the issue comes.
I think the issue would be is if the issue was the town manager.
Right,
Right.
and I think that's.
And I
what you guys
think that
are
in that
Yeah.
respect,
That's what we
the
have.
rules for the appeal board should spell out that if the town manager is a party to it, that it would come to the council and not the recommendation of the council and not back to the manager. I think
Right.
that's where the change needs to be made.
Right, that's the part of the admin code, so I'm thinking where this is tied directly, indirectly to the admin code, that if we can put a pin in this, and with this, maybe a caveat that we would look at the section of the admin code, that way we can anticipate what we need to do for that section of the admin code,
Right.
Need to look at that.
and be able to view this in the proper light.
Right, need to
Right,
look
it
at
gives you context, right?
Yeah,
It gives you context
Yeah.
for what is in the
yeah,
different sections.
exactly,
Yeah.
right. We're trying to define the size of the cart, we don't know what we have for a horse.
That's exactly right.
Put a pin in it.
Put a pin in it.
That's what.
All right, so we're all set, Heather, good? Doc, Jason,
Yeah.
Talia, all right, let's move on, section 4.03. 4.04. All right, article 5, section 5.01, I have a note for that one. Yes. So my note it has been brought up by council previously and may need to be revisited in the future only after an efficient and proper process can be defined, misspelled, including scheduled steps and evolutions. So the change in the fiscal year in this town is going to be a bear, and I don't know if we can change this statement in anticipation of a vote for this year so that we change it for the following year. You know, if the fiscal year can be changed as early as next year, I don't know how, I think that's gonna be a process.
I think you can change it just by removing the word. Or by removing on the first day of January, and then the last day of December, you can say as determined, or.
I don't think,
I think,
I don't think, Jacob, can you have some input on that?
well, what I'm saying is you can leave it somewhat ambiguous, I think.
No,
Why can't? you?
no, Jacob, can you provide some input
Just
on that?
define it to be in line with the school, whatever the hell that is.
I think you would want a pretty cut and dry. That, for budgeting purposes, if I've got a council one year that wants to do it in the calendar.
No, understood, but it would have to be, yeah, I guess that's true, you would have to write it in once it's good, yeah.
This would be a simple thing to change if we get to the point where the town is able to change their fiscal year to match the school and pretty much everything else. I mean, it makes sense to do that. We all agree on that. But we also have had determination from the town attorney that we can operate to a certain degree contrary to what it says in the charter with stipulations. We don't have to wait for this to change and then get into the budget process saying, oh, well, the charter says with this, we have to get the budget, the fiscal year change around. There's an option so that we can make changes as necessary and kind of back into it. That's how we did with the town manager contract. Because the charter clearly states something different than what we had. So either this year or the next year's council can get clarification, this is what we want to do. How does this one statement affect us? We have to have that ability and that flexibility to change our fiscal year if we need to, if we desire to, for whatever reason. We can't let one sentence in the charter say, no, you can't. You
Well,
have to do this first, and then we're
but
on pins and needles waiting for the next vote, which has to be in the next general election. And if it doesn't go there, and then the first week in November, the budget has to be done in the next 7 weeks. And you have to either plan on having the budget good until July, then do another budget for the rest of the year. What I'm saying is that it's like one of those Chinese puzzles. You got 8 pieces you have to put together all at the same
and
time.
you'd have to do it that way anyway. You'd have to do a 6-month budget and then go for a year budget. the next
Right,
year.
right, but it makes no sense for us to go through, the council to go through and do a 6-month budget if we're hamstrung by the charter saying, no, you can't, this is what it says.
It just
Well, we're
reverts
changing
to
what-
the previous fiscal year.
Right, I know we're changing the charter, but what I'm saying is that if we make the changes here and now and that gets voted on in November, are we ready to start doing the budget to go from December until July? Do you guys want to do that process?
We can do it
Yes,
I'd rather be.
Yes, I do.
I'd rather do it.
Yeah.
Jacob, please. You're looking like me when I can't talk, go ahead.
You can put in a date that it's gonna begin.
What we would do, if the council were to say that we're going to switch to a fiscal year budget where you run from July to June. In this coming year, we would budget as though this was going to pass. And we would draft a 6-month budget. Now, it's the first year, it is a little rocky, and we could be left scrambling a little bit if it weren't to that, but how we would do it is we would draft a 6-month budget. And then, July, we would start the process, 2 months before July to do a 12-month budget. Or you could do a 18-month budget, but that's a dog, and I won't have to do it. But, so I think it can be done. So I'm not exactly following.
Right, but I don't know if we understand the scope of what the council would be up against if we do decide to change that.
Can I ask you a question? Is there another place? Administrative code, what have you, that this could be written that would take less work to change
Outside of the charter, you mean?
outside of the charter, and then the charter would just, that's kind of what I was trying to get to, I just couldn't form the words, there, where it would refer
So-
to as outlined in
So delete reference to it entirely.
You would just, as outlined in,
I don't know if we can though.
I think you should have, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, I don't think this is something that we should back on to this revision of the charter, because the computer said before that large scale revisions need to go through the charter commission process.
Mhm.
And to me, changing your entire budgeting and all the other administrative things we're talking about constitutes a large scale change to our charter. This is like a major tenet of the charter of how you operate your financial obligations and responsibilities. My suggestion would be that we note this as an area of interest, and I think it's gonna take a whole lot more planning than we have time to devote to, because we wanna get through the rest of the charter stuff. And just the budget part alone is gonna be a lot to deal with. Changing that.
for me, this would be one of the bigger pieces if we were going
This
to
is the
drop
biggest
anything, I would drop everything else and focus on this, I think. I think
I
this-
don't see how
I
it's
think-
that difficult.
I think we. set
Right, so why do you
ourselves
have
up
to
for
do it now? Do you have any idea how the whole budget process is gonna go?
Yeah, we do,
We
it
do.
instead of doing
We
a
have it all
12
figured
month,
out.
instead of doing a 12-month budget, we do a 6-month budget. Like, what the hell is that? That's not that difficult.
Well,
You know, before we go any further, we have 3 minutes left in this meeting. I don't think we're gonna get this figured out here, so, why don't we
Pick it up.
call it a hard stop now?
drop in it.
Yeah, drop another pin in it, requisition more pins for the next meeting. Any suggestions for the, next workshop, folks?
Focus on 5 point.
It's 5 past 5 to deal with it.
No, we have to start and finish, and then we'll go back and get the highlights.
So,
So, workshop for the next meeting,
Then go back.
Craig,
yes.
workshop for the next meeting.
Sure.
Heather,
April, is that
I'll
April
go on,
2nd?
Doc,
April 7th. Yep.
Yeah, it is.
Jason,
Sure.
Natalia,
I think so. Yep,
Heather, back to you. Zach,
I can't know, we'll be in Albany.
can you zoom in?
We're just doing the low.
I mean, now you're gonna really zoom in. We can do it the next meeting.
We wanna put these charter meetings like in between council meetings, so that
No,
No, I
we
do.
have more than an hour. if possible.
no,
No, we can start them earlier too.
Jacob Jack.
yeah, we could start early,
Well, I was
90
thinking of
minutes.
You wanna do it the following meeting? Are you available then? Is
16th,
that the next one?
Heather, can we do the low hanging fruit? That's the one that you're not at,
16th works for me.
like, kind of like Eric,
The balance of it.
and then you'll be back for all the highlighted stuff. And if you have something specific that you wanted to us to hold off on, we can.
I think so.
It's more just like whether or not. we wanna talk
So,
about it.
so, the next meeting, April 2nd, we'll continue the workshop, start with section 5.02 and finish. And any other ones that we wanna put a pin in, then we'll have another meeting after that where we all can be present. After we get notification out to everyone, specifically, these are the sections that we're looking at, we've already reviewed everything else, so
Yeah.
we've already reviewed everything else, that way we can kind of increase our efficiency. Does that sound good? Heather, you good with that?
No, but that's what you're gonna do, so.
Well, tell us what works for you, I mean, this is why we're having this discussion.
Well, I think I would work for me to put them in between the regular meetings.
That doesn't work for me.
Or me.
Push it out to-
Are you available the 16th? You available the 16th? Doc, Talia,
Yeah.
Jason? All right, next workshop, before the next meeting on the 16th, please.
Well, all council meetings are gonna start at 11, and then the workshops will be 6 or 7.
Yep. Yep.
Thank you.
Maybe we can, now that we know, the tone that we're looking at and, what's left to do on this, we can kind of sharpen our pencils a little bit instead of having these, initial conversations, what if. You know, I'm not, saying that wasn't, useful or, I think we can probably be a bit more efficient. Okay, so workshop complete. I'll look for, most for German.
Who adjourned?
Like,
All right, workshop is adjourned. We'll take,